Imagine just walking up to this towering, hissing industrial machine, something you've literally never seen before in your life.
Oh, that sounds incredibly daunting, honestly.
Right. We're talking a massive tangle of pipes, high pressure valves, heavy metal stuff that could be incredibly dangerous if you mishandle it.
Yeah, one wrong move and it's a major disaster.
Exactly. But now imagine just instantly knowing how to operate it, like knowing exactly how to fix a broken seal and, crucially, how to safely shut the whole thing down.
I mean, it genuinely sounds like downloading a skill straight into your brain, like that helicopter scene in The Matrix.
It really does. But our mission today on the deep dive is to figure out if that sci-fi scenario is, well, actually becoming a reality.
Which is a huge question.
It is. And we have a totally fresh stack of sources to unpack today to answer it. Specifically, a brand new white paper and a very bold press release that just dropped today, July 1st, 2026.
Yeah, from EON AI Ventures.
Right. They're launching a product called EON Universal for oil and gas.
Yeah.
And the core claim here is just staggering.
It really is.
They say this AI field intelligence layer can take a completely green day one worker and literally give them the intuition of a multi-year expert.
Which is, a claim that demands some serious scrutiny. Because if this actually works the way the white paper outlines, we aren't just looking at a software update here.
No, definitely not.
Or even just a new training app. We're looking at a complete paradigm shift in how humanity handles highly specialized, high-stakes work.
Yeah, EON is framing this as the birth of a totally new category of enterprise system. They call it work intelligence.
Work intelligence.
Yeah.
I like that. And to get us in the right headspace, my digital backdrop for this deep dive today is cycling through these 3D industrial schematics and offshore rig blueprints, just to set the scene.
I love that. Work intelligence. I want to really test how real that concept is, because to understand why a company would even attempt to build something like EON Universal, we have to look at the very real, very terrifying crisis facing heavy industry right now.
You're talking about the expertise cliff.
Yes, the sources call it the expertise cliff.
And that cliff is a massive blind spot for a lot of people outside the industrial sector. The reality is that the people who hold 30, sometimes 40 years of deeply ingrained judgment,
The real veterans.
exactly, the people who just intuitively know how these complex plants run, well, they are retiring en masse.
And they take all that undocumented knowledge right out the door with them.
They do. And the people replacing them are totally green. And we aren't talking about training a new employee to, use a cash register.
Right, the stakes are a bit higher.
Much higher. These workers are being sent to remote, safety-critical sites. If you are out on a rig in the North Sea or some remote processing plant in Texas, being wrong isn't just an inconvenience.
No, a mistake causes a severe escalation, like an environmental disaster or a fatal safety hazard.
Exactly.
So, okay, let's unpack this. If you are managing a team of these workers, or say you're the CFO of one of these massive energy companies, how have you historically tried to solve this knowledge gap? You just throw money at it, right?
Historically, yes, vast amounts of money. The industry standard has basically been to build these hand-modeled, bespoke virtual reality simulators for every single specific facility.
Sounds expensive.
Incredibly expensive. You pay a team of developers to create a highly detailed digital twin of Plant A and then a completely separate digital twin for Plant B.
But the white paper points out a massive flaw in that approach, which they call the flaw of enumeration.
Right.
Basically, treating industrial work as this infinite list of specific locations that simply have to be memorized one by one.
Yes.
So if I build $1 million simulator for Plant A, what happens the very moment a contractor comes in and changes a single pipe routing or upgrades a valve?
Your $1 million simulator is instantly obsolete. It's useless.
Wow.
That is the fundamental trap of enumeration, is a recurring, unending cost because the physical world keeps changing.
It sounds a lot like trying to learn a new language by memorizing every single sentence you might ever need to speak in your entire life.
Which is impossible.
Completely impossible. If someone says a word you haven't memorized, the whole system just breaks down. You'd never be able to handle a fluid conversation.
That language analogy is the perfect lens for this, actually. And it brings us directly to EON's proposed solution from the text, which is composition.
Okay, so sticking with the language metaphor, composition means you stop trying to memorize the full sentences.
Right.
Instead, you learn the vocabulary, you learn the grammar, and then you can compose any sentence you ever need on the fly.
Exactly. You can walk into a facility you've never visited in your life, and because you know the basic words of the facility, you understand what you are looking at.
That makes so much sense.
And just consider the economic impact of that flip. Enumeration, memorizing whole facilities, scales linearly with the number of facilities you own. It literally never ends.
A financial black hole.
Basically, yeah. But composition learning, the fundamental components that scales with a bounded set of component classes, it becomes an asset that compounds over time.
Because every single maintenance job performed across the entire company makes that shared vocabulary smarter.
Exactly.
Which naturally begs a huge question. If EON Universal is just teaching these workers the fundamental words of an oil facility, what exactly is that vocabulary?
That is the big question.
Because, I'll play the skeptic here, an oil rig is massively complex. Are we talking about having to map tens of thousands of individual parts to make this system functional? That sounds just as exhausting as building the bespoke simulators.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
What's fascinating here is that the source text reveals some truly surprising math.
Okay, lay it on me.
Well, first off, they didn't invent a new language from scratch. They based their bounded library on ISO 14224.
I'm assuming that's a pre-existing industrial standard.
It is, yeah. It's the petroleum industry's own established equipment taxonomy.
What's smart?
This is a very deliberate choice because it means that on day one, the AI speaks the customer's exact data language.
No translation needed.
Right. When the system identifies a part out in the field, that data maps straight into the oil company's existing reliability and maintenance records.
Okay, removing that friction for adoption makes a lot of business sense. But getting back to the sheer volume of parts, how big is this bounded library, actually?
So they break it down into 3 tiers of knowledge. Tier 1 covers the core gear a technician actually puts their hands on daily.
Like what?
Standard valves, pumps, compressors, things like that. So, care to guess how many equipment classes make up that entire first tier?
Hold on, let me stop you there. I'm picturing a refinery that looks like a small city. I'd assume we were talking about at least 1,000 core classes of equipment.
Try roughly 50.
Just 50? Wait, really?
Just 50.
You're telling me I can learn 50 things and suddenly I understand a massive chunk of a multi-billion-dollar facility? That feels like a bit of a stretch from their PR team, honestly. What are we actually talking about here?
I was highly skeptical too, but the math holds up across the industry. Those 50 classes cover over 80% of all real-world field interactions.
That is wild.
And in fact, the white paper notes that about 15 of them carried the vast majority of the daily maintenance value.
Wow. Okay, so you learn 50 words, and you can functionally comprehend 80% of everything happening on site. What about the other 20%?
That falls to Tier 2 and Tier 3. Tier 2 covers the variants and subtypes of those core items, so the system is rarely surprised by, a weird pump.
Got it.
That adds about 300 types. And finally, Tier 3 gets into the maintainable sub-items.
Like the tiny pieces.
Yeah, the specific seals, the bearings, the actuators. And that tops out around 1,000 to 2,000 items total.
Okay, let's put that in perspective for a second. Instead of a never-ending recurring cost of mapping 5,000 specific physical locations, facility by facility.
Yeah, which is a nightmare.
Right. Instead of that, you map this finite library of a couple thousand total items once.
Just once.
You program the vocabulary, not the physical locations.
And you own it permanently. It's a compounding asset.
That's brilliant.
But identifying a pump is only half the battle.
Right, because just recognizing a label doesn't help me safely fix a broken seal when the machine is screaming with high-pressure fluid.
Exactly.
So how does the software actually know what a component is?
Well, EON draws a very sharp line between simply labeling something and actually understanding it. To truly know a component, EON Universal builds a 6-layer competence record for every single class in that library.
6 layers. Okay, let's walk through these because this seems to be the difference between a glorified encyclopedia and actual field intelligence.
Right. So the first 2 layers are identity and geometry.
Okay.
Identity is just the ISO class, the aliases, the basic equipment tag.
Yeah.
And geometry is the 3D model and the multi-angle imagery.
So layers 1 and 2 are purely visual recognition. The system basically says, hey, I see a pump and here's what it looks like from the side.
Yes.
That's great for a textbook, but it doesn't guide my hands out in the field.
No. And that requires the next 4 layers. Layer 3 is anatomy. Yeah, meaning the AI knows the subcomponents and where the asset physically begins and ends in the real world.
Ah, okay.
And layer 4 is function. It knows what the machine actually does and its normal operating envelope.
By operating envelope, you mean it knows how hot it should normally run or like how much it should vibrate?
Yes, exactly. The baseline physics of the thing. Then we get to layer 5, which is behavior.
Behavior. It maps how the component responds to upsets or abnormal conditions.
Yes.
Wait, behavior. You make it sound like a mechanical pump has a personality or something. What does behavior mean in a physical reality?
I mean, not a personality, but predictable physical reactions.
Give me an example.
Okay, if a seal starts to fail, how does the internal pressure react? A standard manual just says check pressure.
Right.
But because EON Universal understands behavior, it knows that if the pressure spikes, the temperature is going to follow a few seconds later.
Oh, because it actually understands the physics linking them.
Precisely. Yeah. And that leads directly to layer 6, which is procedure. How to actually operate it, inspect it, isolate it, and fix it.
Here is where this gets really interesting to me, because EON AI Ventures already had a product on the market before this called Genesis.
Right.
And the white paper mentions Genesis is their core engine. So if I'm a worker, what is the actual difference between using Genesis and this new EON Universal layer?
So Genesis is incredibly useful, but it is fundamentally a baseline. It takes standard operating procedures, SOPs, along with photographs, and converts them into interactive step-by-step simulators.
Okay.
But it only shows the steps in a fixed straight-line sequence.
Let me try an analogy here to see if I'm tracking. Is Genesis essentially like an old school GPS?
How so?
Like it blindly tells you, turn left in 500 feet. And it doesn't care if there's a parade blocking the street or a giant pothole. It just knows the sequence.
Right, yeah.
Whereas EON Universal is like having a lowball sitting in the passenger seat. They tell you to turn left, but they also understand why you were turning left, and they can adapt if the road is closed.
That is a phenomenal way to differentiate them, honestly. Genesis knows what to show, but it has no concept of why.
Right.
EON Universal is the intelligence layer sitting on top of Genesis. Because it has that 6-layer component library we just talked about, it understands the actual work being performed.
The source material actually gives a very concrete proof point for this. They talk about isolating a pump.
Yes, that's a great example.
Let's dig into that because it perfectly illustrates the passenger analogy.
So the pump isolation example highlights the difference between a static standard operating procedure and a conditional SOP.
A conditional SOP.
Right. Genesis runs a sequential straight-line SOP. Step 1, turn off power. Step 2, open casing.
Very linear.
Exactly.
Right.
But EON Universal runs conditional SOPs, which branch and change based on live reality.
Because it understands layer 5, the behavior.
Yes.
The text points out that when you try to isolate a pump, you de-energize it, right? You verify there's zero electrical energy.
Right.
And a basic system just tells you to crack it open next. But EON Universal stops the worker and asks the conditional question. It says, is pressure still present?
And think about the physics there. Why does it ask that? Because EON Universal functionally knows that a pump can store highly dangerous physical pressure long after the electrical power is cut.
Wow.
Genesis has no concept of what pressure even is. It's just a text string to it. But EON Universal understands the physical threat.
So if pressure is present, it branches the procedure dynamically.
Exactly. Instructing the worker to bleed it down and then recheck.
Okay, but what if the pressure won't bleed down? What if the situation is totally abnormal?
It initiates a safety gate. It stops the job entirely and escalates it to a human supervisor. It refuses to let the worker proceed into a dangerous unknown.
Moving from static recorded training to dynamic on-the-fly judgment is incredible.
It's a huge leap.
But I have to ask, this is all great in a server room or, a pristine office, but you are a green worker. You are out in the mud, the dirt, and the grime of a real refinery.
Oh, yeah.
You're wearing heavy impact gloves, a hard hat, and safety glasses. How on earth are you actually accessing this deep intelligence? I mean, you can't exactly pull out a laptop.
No, definitely not. But EON addresses this through their delivery architecture, which basically operates on the principle of author once, deliver everywhere.
Author once, deliver everywhere.
The core understanding is built once in the AI, but it meets the worker wherever they are across 3 distinct physical surfaces.
Okay, let's break down those 3 surfaces. What is the entry-level option?
The first is what they call the anywhere surface. This is accessed via a standard smartphone or basic AR glasses.
Okay.
It allows for one-to-one scale practice at home, in a hotel, or in a worker's remote camp.
So I could be sitting in my living room, and through my phone screen, there's a full-scale digital oil pump sitting on my rug, and I can just walk around it and practice bleeding the pressure.
Exactly that. It is completely virtual, requiring 0 physical industrial hardware.
That's pretty cool.
But then you graduate to the second surface, which is on the rig.
Out in the dirt and grime.
Yes. out in the real world. The worker uses a ruggedized, explosion-proof tablet or industrial AR glasses equipped with LiDAR.
Let's clarify LiDAR for anyone unfamiliar. We are basically talking about laser radar, right? The device shoots out tiny laser beams to map the 3D space and objects around you in real time.
Correct. And using that LiDAR, the system's Field IQ software overlays the digital twin directly onto the real physical equipment sitting right in front of the worker.
That sounds like magic.
It really does. Every physical pipe and valve becomes digitally tappable and interactive,
Yeah.
overlaid right on reality.
So this isn't just a VR headset locked away in a classroom. This is live, on-the-spot intelligence actively guiding your gloved hands while you look at the real metal.
It is contextual guidance in the field.
Yep.
And finally, there is the third surface, the immersive tier.
Immersive tier.
Right. They refer to this as the SAVE or the holodeck.
The holodeck. Love it.
Yeah, it's a premium facility-level setup. It uses high-definition LED walls and floors to completely surround a trainee in a fully generated, full-scale industrial skid.
For anyone who hasn't been on a plant floor, a skid is basically a massive modular steel frame that holds a whole network of pipes, valves, and pumps, like a giant multi-ton industrial pallet.
Exactly. And because the EON system deeply understands the components, it can generate unlimited engineering-valid configurations of these skids for the holodeck on the fly.
It sounds a lot like how airlines use those million-dollar flight simulators for pilots.
It's the exact same concept.
Because why do pilots need full physical immersion? Because when an engine fails, muscle memory and spatial awareness matter way more than a textbook.
That is the exact philosophy. The white paper lists 7 training use cases shipped in this first library, and they go far beyond simple walkthroughs.
Like what?
Well, they have talking components where you tap a valve in AR and the valve literally explains its own function in physics to you.
I have to push back a little here, though. Having a valve talk to me is a neat trick. But does this really replace a 30-year veteran's gut feeling that something is about to go wrong?
That's a fair question.
Like, is this going to work, or is it just a PR dream?
Well, that is where their fault injection capability becomes critical.
Yeah.
The AI deliberately throws unexpected errors into the simulation.
Oh, like a surprise test.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A sudden pressure drop, a stuck actuator.
Yeah.
It does this to test if the trainee recognizes the anomaly. It forces them to actually exercise judgment rather than just blindly following a script.
Oh, wow.
And it all culminates in defensible, scored certification.
Meaning the enterprise gets hard, data-driven evidence that a worker is actually ready to touch the real machinery, not just a certificate saying they managed to stay awake through a 2-hour PowerPoint.
Right. It's measured, tested competence against a rigorous standard. And it's worth noting that while today's launch is hyper-focused on oil and gas, this engine is fundamentally facility agnostic.
Right, because the physics of a valve don't change just because you put it in a different building. A pump is a pump.
The vocabulary is universal. The source notes that petrochemicals are already mapped, and industries like mining, aerospace, and general power will follow the exact same bounded vocabulary approach.
So let's zoom out here and look at the big picture. What does this all mean? We are looking at a massive paradigm shift in how we define enterprise software itself.
Absolutely.
Think about it. A major corporation uses an ERP system to track its money and resources. It uses a CRM, like Salesforce, to track its customers. It uses a PLM, product lifecycle management system, to track how it builds its physical products.
Right.
With EON Universal, work intelligence is stepping up to be the enterprise system of record that holds the actual work.
And this raises an incredibly important question about the nature of corporate knowledge. Dan Lajerskar, the founder and chairman of EON AI Ventures, put it brilliantly in the press release.
What did he say?
He pointed out that general-purpose AI, your standard large language models, they can scrape and learn everything on the public internet, but they absolutely cannot learn how a specific proprietary chemical plant in Texas runs.
Because that highly specialized knowledge has never been digitized. It never left the site. It is literally locked in the heads of the guys who are retiring next month.
Exactly. EON Universal captures that localized, highly specific intuition, turns it into a bounded vocabulary, and transforms it into an enterprise asset that gets smarter with every single shift worked.
Mats Johansson, the president of EON, really hammered home the core philosophy for me. He summarized the entire massive product in one clean sentence.
Oh yeah, that quote.
He said, Genesis shows the steps. EON Universal understands the work.
It's perfectly stated.
When the software functionally knows that a pump stores pressure, training stops being a static recording. It becomes an active, protective judgment that a completely green worker can carry directly into a dangerous field.
It basically gives them the intuition and the safety reflex of a 30-year veteran, potentially on day one.
It is staggering to think about the economic and safety implications of that. And it leaves me with this thought, which I really want you, the listener, to ponder long after this deep dive ends.
A good one.
Think about your own job, whatever field you are in. Maybe you don't work on an oil rig. Maybe you work in marketing or corporate finance or healthcare management. If all of your daily tasks, your hard-won intuition, and your deep, nuanced expertise were broken down into a bounded library of components, your own 50 classes of work, how easily could an AI compose a complete understanding of what you do every day?
It is a slightly unsettling but really profound thought. Are we all just a finite vocabulary waiting to be learned by a system?
Are we all just 50 fundamental components in a different configuration? It is definitely something to chew on. But until then, the next time you walk past a towering, hissing metal behemoth of a machine, just know it might be getting ready to explain itself to you. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into EON Universal and the dawn of work intelligence. Keep questioning, keep learning, and we'll catch you on the next one.